Okay, welcome to this lovely event that we've put on for Metro Charity, and welcome to our panelists, who I will introduce in a moment. So, my name is Sherry Norman. I work for Metro Charity and as their training and development manager, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm going to chair this panel on creative wellness tonight, and we're only aiming to go for about an hour, so we'll hopefully finish at 7 o'clock. And welcome to anyone who's joining us in the audience. And please feel free to put questions into the comment section as we go through. So a little bit about me is that I am in terms of creativity and artistic stuff, I have a little bit of artistic talent, I suppose, but I kind of direct that into things like gardening and into things like baking. Baking is my thing, and decorating cakes, and that's about as far as my creativity goes. So we've actually got here Delphine, Eleanor, and Paminda, who are going to bring their expertise and their insight into the work that we've been having submitted at Metro for the whole week of the LBT Women and Queer Health Week. So a little background on this project is that this project is being supported by the National LGBT Partnership. There's too many acronyms here, so I'm getting my tongue's getting all twisted up. So this has been supported by the National LGBT Partnership, and this year Metro Charity has encouraged the submission of creative pieces from LBT women and queer people that explores and celebrates an experience of well-being and identity. Each submitted piece has been displayed in an online gallery at the Metro website, which you can see running along the ribbon at the bottom here is where you can actually see the different pieces that were submitted. And thank you to everyone who actually has sent those in to us. So the aim of this is all in aid of celebrating LBT Women's Health Week. And with the aim of this week is to raise awareness about lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and queer women's health inequalities, to make it easier for them to be empowered to access services and to empower service providers to provide a more inclusive service to all LBT women and non-binary and queer people, and to support the LGBTQ community as well. This week has been an opportunity to celebrate, highlight, and learn. We've done this, or Metro's chosen to do this, through creative wellness and celebration of expression of identity. So thank you to everyone who has submitted a piece for the gallery, and to our panelists, who are lovely panelists who have all agreed to come and actually put some insight into this area of work. And I'm just going to quickly explain who they are. So we've got Parminder Sakon, who is the CEO of NAS, which is a HIV and sexual health agency working with minoritized communities. She's the co-author of Red Threads, a book of photographs documenting LGBTQ South Asians people, published back in 2003. She's also exhibited solo and jointly, covering intersection of ethnicity, HIV, sexual and gender identity. So thank you very much for joining us, Parminder. We also have Delphine Bruche, whose pronouns are they and them. They are a youth counsellor at Metro and have been involved with Metro for the past 5 years. They also run their own LGBTQ plus private practice and a Montessori school in Kent. So I'm not really sure where they get time to do all of that. They also have had a very long artistic journey, which started as a child collecting shells and objects and stones and pattern items from the beach and the forests of South France, where they then made those into collages and installations. And now Delphine brings art to the therapy room, paints, does collages, street arts, attends workshops, learns more about stenciling and using those creating stencils and using those to spray paint on canvases and walls, which they can tell us a lot more about very shortly. And they're currently exhibiting at the Old Diorama in an exhibition with Loudest Whispers as an LGBTQ plus artists only exhibition under the themes of art and politics. So thank you, Delphine, for joining us. And finally, we have Eleanor West, certainly not least, but we have Eleanor West, whose pronouns are she and they, who is an interdisciplinary artist whose work explores their own queer experience combined with research from archive materials. They mainly work in textile arts, producing quilts, embroidery, and crochet sculptures. They graduated from Camberwell College of Arts in 2019 and now lives and works in South London. So welcome, Eleanor, as well. And thank you to all of you for joining us today and giving us some insight into the works and pieces that have been submitted, as well as your own experience as well. Okay, so we're going to have a quick look at the gallery and what's been submitted. And the first piece in the gallery is actually a poem that was submitted anonymously, but we actually feel like it's so linked to this topic and sense of well-being that we wanted to just read this out and take a moment to just kind of breathe in some of this energy. So I'm just going to read this quite quickly. You can see the poem is actually up on the screen, but I'm just going to read it as well. So, and I hope I do this justice, but because I'm not a poet myself, so I apologize if I don't, but I hope I do it justice. So, I could write and draw all day. Each creation fills my soul, fills it with those feelings that cannot be bought. That new piece of clothing made me feel something for a night. But you, my brush, my pen, my pencil, my paint, you have healed 1,000 wounds and created a new strength I never knew I needed. So thank you for that submission. And that was from Anonymous. I think it really evokes a lot of feelings, particularly in terms of wellness and health and well-being, and that relationship to art and creativity. So thank you. Might have a look at some of the other pieces that have come through into the gallery. So this is a piece that was done. This is a collective piece that was done by one of our youth groups, the Bridge. So it's a collective piece of creative youth work that was done. This is a photograph submitted by Anna Nicole. Another piece that was submitted anonymously. Sorry, I'm just going to have a little drink. So this piece here was actually submitted by Eleanor, who is one of our panelists. Another one by Eleanor. This is another one that was anonymous. This has actually been submitted by Delphine, one of our panelists. Again, Delphine. This one by Gregory King. This has been submitted by Joni. This is actually a photograph. It looks a bit like a painting, but it's actually a photograph. This is a lovely embroidery. Collage by Nicola Jones. And a photograph submitted by Parminda, one of our panelists. Okay, thank you. Thank you to our IT support in the background there for making this all happen. Thank you to Opal C for your comments there. We've had a few comments come through. I just thought I might open it up at this point to our panelists and just ask, just open up to all three of you if you wanted to just make any comments or share with us some ideas or thoughts from what we've just seen. Paminda?
Well, I just absolutely loved seeing all of those pictures, all
Mm,
one after the other. I mean, so powerful, so diverse, and it was just so affirming to see so many
mm,
different types of artwork, um, and really touching. I loved the poem that you read, Shari, from Anonymous, where it said, "My pencil, my brush, the paint, healing 1,000 wounds," and I think it really kind of encapsulates why the four of us are here today and
yeah.
what we're going to talk about. I love the small embroidery from one of the participants, one of the contributors. So beautiful, so small. Um, so yeah, I was really moved by it, and I found it really, really affirming to see them all back to back.
Thank you. Thanks, Paminda. Yeah, I agree. I really liked that embroidery. So small and yet so perfectly encapsulates certain emotive feelings, I think. Thank you. Delphine?
Yeah, yeah. I could have just gone on and on. I wish it would just continue, and I'm very lucky to be able to see what young people's work. I can see it displayed at New Cross, and I can see it displayed, and I feel very lucky. And I spend time, in my lunch break to just look at what our young people are saying and doing. It's just absolutely amazing what they're coming up with, and the creativity is just endless. There's no limit,
Mm.
and it's brilliant. I love it.
It's that beginning of a journey, isn't it? At the beginning of an artistic journey.
Yeah, and I think it is quite poignant for me because I don't think I had that outlet at the time. And if this had
Mm.
existed for me, that would have changed a lot for me. So I think what we do is so important, to release that creativity and give, young people a space to be able to do that. Um, it's just
Mm.
essential. It's brilliant to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Elena, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I feel really privileged to be able to show alongside all the different participants. I think there's such a great diverse range of work, like so many different disciplines,
Mm.
so many different people with different backgrounds. I think it really encapsulates kind of what creativity means in our community.
Mm.
And I'm so glad so many different people submitted work. Like, I think it can be really vulnerable to put yourself out there to show something that you've created. So just wanted to really thank everyone that submitted as well, for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Um, Thank you so much, and thank you to the three of you for actually, um, coming in this space as well, because there is a certain level of vulnerability to coming into this kind of space as well, and talking about this. So thank you also to you three as well for doing this. So I'm going to actually, if any kind of questions come up, we'll try and answer them as we go along. But please feel free to ask questions in the comment section, and we'll try and answer them. But I've got a couple of questions that I've sort of put out, to kind of shape the session tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask this first one, and I'll ask it to each of you, um, which is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how your artistic journey began, um, and you how you're kind of part of that creative artistic expression. So I might start with Eleanor. Do you want to go first? It's a little bit about yourself and how you began your artistic creative journey.
So I was born and grew up in Portsmouth for most of my life. Um, I didn't go to the best schools or colleges, and resources were definitely tight. And for my A levels, I decided I'd pick photography, like completely on a whim. And I really fell in love with the creative process and the storytelling that I could do with that. Um, I then went to start my degree at Camberwell College of Arts in photography. And within my first term, I stopped taking photos, because as a queer person, as a queer woman, I kept putting work out there, and it to be received to an audience that I didn't intend, and I really struggled with that sense of ownership.
Mm.
And I found throughout my artistic kind of career at the beginning, I was so focused on what I couldn't do, thinking that I couldn't paint, I couldn't draw, but actually there is no such thing as not being able to do it. um if you do anything and you believe that it's art, you should feel proud of that and continue to work on it. um yeah, the people who decide what good art is and are people with lots of money and people with lots of privilege. So if you're making something and you love it, then that's kind of, yeah. So I quickly fell into textile arts, nearly completely by accident, and just found that I could make really soft and tactile works that really captured my audience's attention and made them feel safe and made them feel loved, which is what my work tries to do. It tries to talk about maybe quite traumatic experiences or really difficult feelings, especially if you're coming to terms with your sexuality or identity. So to be able to talk about a hard subject with kind of a soft material is really kind of affirming for me, and people seem to respond to it well as well. So yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So we've had a question. If you could talk about your piece behind you as well, Eleanor.
Oh yeah. So this, I'm gonna. There we go. So
Beautiful.
this is
Thank you.
this is a miniature work I made with plastic cross stitch material and crochet. Um, it's kind of inspired by nuclear war film that shows a house and then it being the effects of a house being destroyed by an atomic bomb. So as you can see, I've kind of made fallout surrounding the house. But I'm really inspired by kind of Cold War material and thinking about how I can queer it to talk about safety. For most of my like adolescence, I found safety was in my bedroom, on my laptop, in queer forums, queer Twitter spaces, like that was my queer kind of coming out. So the home features quite a lot in my work and that feeling of like refuge and safety. Um yeah, so I made a little house and yeah, it was first exhibited in a doll's house gallery as well. So one day I'd like to make a really big one of those, but time, money, and space are the real challenges.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. I'm going to come to Delphine because they've asked about the piece behind you as well. So, do you want to talk a little bit, Delphine, about the piece that's behind you, but also talk a little bit more about your journey into your own creative artistic expression as well? Oh, you're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, so
There we
this is my peacock. It's a non-binary peacock. It's got both genders in there, and I made this about 2 years ago before I came out as non-binary in the first place. So my subconscious was also playing into what do I want to do, and I was looking at pictures of a male peacock, female peacock, and I'm thinking, I don't want to choose. I want to be both. And that's how this was produced. So it's spray painted as well, but it took, oh my gosh, it took about 4 months because I kept doing layer after layer after layer. There was a lot of work going on, and I don't know what was I don't know what was going on. But then there was a switch in my mind. I thought, I know why I've just done this. And then I got it displayed in my living room in a major place, where everybody can see it. This is it. It's like being visible. This is it. I know it's quite simple, but the process was very long, and I had no idea why I was doing it, but I had this drive to be doing it. So I just followed my instinct, my gut instinct, and it worked.
So the piece, the peacock, is part of your journey in terms of your identity.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But there are many more before that as well. So my background is I was born in France, and as you said, I when I was a child, so children naturally like to collect things and could be super creative, and I was, and enjoyed doing collage and picking up lots of things in nature, that sort of thing. And then the French academia just really killed all of that. Creativity was completely killed, because it's not valued. So your sense of self-esteem, value, everything is gone unless you are doing something. You are good at French, you are good at this, you're good at that. But art, no, that is just not valued. And music was one of my passions as well. But that was killed off as well, for many, many, many years, until I started training as a counselor and went into therapy. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to bring a painting to my therapist. And I did a painting of a tree, and it was all pretty with little butterflies. And she went, your tree has no roots. It's got roots, but they go nowhere. They're going nowhere. And I started thinking, I've just done this just to please my therapist. I'm actually very angry. And then I had a series of very angry paintings when I just smashed glass and put them on and spray paint, sorry, with spray paint as well, with no knowledge of how to use it, that sort of thing. And then I came across, it was a gift to myself for a spray painting workshop. And I just instantly fell in love with it. I had like butterfly in my tummy. I was making stencils, and I stayed over. Even the person who was running it said, just stay, just continue spraying on the balls and doing what you want. And it was a falling in love moment. And I thought, I can do this. And I like big pieces. I don't want to do in miniature, which I like to as well, do miniature. I thought, I just want to do big piece, big canvas, have a big voice, have a big, this is what who I am, and what I want. And that was a huge revelation for me. And that's never stopped since. And I plucked up the courage last year to go for the Laddos Whispers exhibition, and I got in for Mind, Body and Spirit. It was a different theme. And I did 3 pieces, and one of that was shown was with my mandala, my first mandala, the one I had made myself, and which I was very proud of. Still, I'm very proud of. And that was it. It was just great to just be in a space where the other queer people who are artists and feeling validated. I'm not an imposter.
Wow.
And just showing that art is just it's amazing, and it's evolving all the time, which is so exciting. It's just really exciting.
It's nice that you have that kind of evolving sort of relationship with it. I'm going to come back to you because I want to ask you a little bit about artistic expression and mental health. So we'll come back to you, but I'm just going to go to Parminder and ask you the same question. But also, Parminder, although you don't have a nice photograph behind you, you do have one in the online gallery that maybe you could talk about. But do you want to talk us through a little bit of your artistic journey?
Yeah, happy to. I think consciously my artistic journey began when I was about 20. Before then, I think it was all very unconscious, and I didn't have any mediums other than acting, which I did explore when I was younger. and carried on into doing that in my adult years. But I remember the point that I began my artistic journey, and that was when I was living in the north of England. At the age of 20, I picked up a camera, and it was in a response to being quite lonely. I was studying away from home. I was very much a learner lesbian, out to hardly anybody, very, very lonely, no other, well, certainly no other queer friends. And without sounding very over dramatic, I think photography saved my life. Photography has been something that I've returned to over and over in my life over the last 25, 30 years. It's a happy place. It's a joyful place. It's a place that has given me lots of outlets for self-expression, and it really served me very, very well. Really helped me as I was coming out. It helped me build confidence, helped me make connections with people, gave me the confidence to approach people and let me take their photograph. And you know, being in a dark room was really joyful. Creating creating images, seeing them come up on paper was really, really a fantastic, therapeutic, brilliant thing that I discovered that I could do. And just like Eleanor and Delphine talked about, that moment when you discover, like when you bake a cake or you sow something or you make a plant grow, a flower go from a seed to actually looking glorious, that moment of I can do this is, well, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so wonderful to nurture that in children and young people, so that they can have those feelings of, wow, I can really do this thing.
Yeah.
Um, is a really lovely thing to experience.
Thank you. And can you talk a little bit about your piece that's in the actual online gallery? This piece here, this
Yeah,
portrait.
yeah. It was a picture taken in Brook Lane. For those people that know East London, it's a quite a well famous road, and it was a play that I was in and was doing, and I had taken this publicity stills, and I had created this image. So a fantastic, and it was for something called the Maharaja's Daughters, which was the last Maharaja of the Punjab in India. So that's where that image I created, and that's the fantastic thing about photography, is that you can imagine images you've never seen, document things that you want to have last forever, and all of those things are, for me, were really very affirming. And
Yeah.
I really connected to Eleanor when Eleanor said that, you know, she joined a photography, a degree in photography. And just to say, I started too and was not able to finish either.
Yeah.
That thing about taking part in an academic process and it just killing any creativity or making you feel like perhaps I can't do this for a little while is a real thing,
Mm.
and sad as well. And
Can I
then
just say, I had a similar experience in France when I was 13. I tried to join the conservatoire and I wanted to do like, you know, art, and I just couldn't do it. The block was just
So, I mean, I haven't abandoned the idea of ever doing an academic course. Maybe, you know, it will still be there somewhere in my future, but right now I haven't. And being able to create without the pressure of an academic course was really freeing and liberating for me.
Thank
So
you.
I am super impressed. Anybody that is able to do that, because
Yeah,
you know that's pretty impressive.
that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm just gonna go to the next question, which is kind of related to LBT um, Health Week, in that I just wanted to ask how you believe engaging in arts and creativity can benefit LBT women's health and well-being. And I particularly wanted to go back to Delphine, because you talked about art through art therapy and counseling and that process. So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about that, about how important it is engaging in arts in terms of health and well-being?
Yeah, I mean, I can see how it helped me in 100 million ways since I started therapy, and it's been a very long journey and a very exciting journey and a very painful journey at times, filled with emotions and emotions I didn't want to feel, like anger. Anger is so taboo in our society. I expressed it through paintings and using different materials on my paintings. And actually, those I've not shown. I've shown more recent ones rather than the process of what happened beforehand. But what I see with my young people as a therapist is that their work is showing me so much and helps with their mental health and well-being. Particularly as I work with young people who are exploring their genders. So, there's a lot of drawing about the dysphoria, and a lot could be quite intense and aggressive, and then a lot could be soothing. So we would have like things that are really gentle and Play-Doh and really soft toys and soft things, but also things they can just really get their hands on. And they can, you can have this big roll of paper and you can paint your dysphoria, you can tear it apart, you can do whatever you want. That's absolutely okay. You've got this space to be able to do that. So I think that's really, 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 really important to be able to do that. So in terms of mental health, expressing emotions.
Do you think it's a way of processing emotions?
Yes, it definitely is, because it's a whole process of, it's a bit like I don't like to be linear or round, you can be fluid with this, and it's individual to each person anyway. But just expressing maybe one emotion or more emotions and then move on to something else, and acting in the world of after having worked together on this emotion creatively, and it can be very much about inviting maybe a young trans woman, saying, hey, you can get dressed as you wish, in at toilets in metro, you can do that, or you can appear at the particular client just doing their makeup during our session, doing their makeup throughout. And I was felt so privileged to see that and the evolution of how it went, and to just express themselves, and on the side, and also having the expression of emotion, what was going on in their life, and then pronouns changing as it went along, and some young people like to show pictures. So because we're on Zoom, I think it's been different because of media, but on Zoom, it's been using the chat, it's been showing pictures. This is me at this particular time. This is the street where I first came out to so and so. This is that piece of art I've made. I'm very lucky to have young people singing to me. I've made a song for you. Can you hear this? Um, I think that the media is endless. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
I had a harmonica, I had like a ukulele, I had a guitar, I had poetry, my breakup poetry to my lover. That sort of thing is absolutely amazing to witness and to work with.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Thanks, Delphine. Eleanor, did you want to say something about like the importance of engaging in creativity in terms of LBT women's health and well-being?
Sure. So personally, I find it quite good. I find it quite difficult to talk about my experience, but being able to make art to help me articulate that and to help others sort of respond to that as well, I find really important. Most textile arts are quite slow processes. So when
Mm,
I'm creating a piece, I'm able to sit with those emotions for quite a long time and really think about how I want to present this and how I want to construct something. Um, and that kind of gives me the headspace to do that. Also, I work a lot in embroidery and crochet, and those are things that you can kind of keep your hands busy with. So I might be in a Teams meeting, I might be watching TV, I might just be having a quiet 5 minutes, but I'm able to pick up and work on a project. And that satisfaction at the end, when you come to the end of a project and you show it off, and you know that satisfaction, just yeah, just rush of serotonin when you finish something and you're proud of it,
yeah.
is what it's all about. Um, Especially to do with like women's history.
Mm,
Textile arts is such a big part of women's history, but they don't always get acknowledged as art. They're like, oh, it's a craft. Oh, you've made a jumper. But, women have been using knitting and crochet to express themselves and build tactile and useful things. And I think these crafts should be kept alive as much as they can. So I would definitely recommend picking up a crochet hook or just experimenting with sewing, because not only are they ways to creatively express yourself, but they're also really helpful life skills. Like, you'll be able to patch up a jumper, you'll be able to like sew on that button. Like, yeah, that can only be a good thing.
is there an importance in the different textiles that you use to create your art?
Yeah, I think a lot about what medium I use depending on what I'm trying to communicate.
Mm,
So for the Rebel Dyke documentary, there was an art and archive exhibition, and I made a quilt based on Green and Common, which was a women's peace camp that had quite a big queer scene as part of that. So I made a single duvet sized quilt with recycled materials and like an old bed sheet I found in like on eBay. um so it had the language and form of a quilt, which is like comfort and it's useful, and it's the kind of thing that the women there would may have made or like created for a useful way. But
mm.
then when it was installed, it had like a pole and a gap across the top, which was talking about oh, there we go. So the top of it was constructed like a banner. Textile arts and activism go hand in hand. We have stuff from union banners. If you've seen Pride, you'll see all like the Pride, the movie.
Yeah.
You'll see all the miners' banners, and they're beautifully hand stitched. To even just spray painting on a bed sheet for like Pride now, like textile arts and queer activism are like this, shaking hands. So yeah, like thinking about what I'm trying to communicate um informs kind of how I go about creating something. And there's a language, kind of like a hidden code in like what materials you decide to use, even if it's like not intentional, like it's there.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for that, Eleanor. And Parminder, what about you in terms of how do you believe engaging in arts and creativity could benefit LBT women's health and well-being?
I think when you create artistic spaces,
Mm.
I think there's no end to how people engage with those spaces. And when you enter into that, you don't always know what's going to come up for you. But if you engage with it in an open way, sometimes the process can be very illuminating. And my experience is that it's creating artistic spaces, creative spaces where women can express themselves, um, is just a very liberating thing to do, creating those expressive outlets.
Mm.
So I think when you've been silenced, or you feel you've been silenced by society, maybe marginalized in some shape or form, or othered, inevitably, before we've even been able to articulate that that has happened to us, we've already probably started engaging in some kind of process of repressing the feelings around those issues as a way to survive.
Mm.
But I think that it's very human that we look for spaces where we can belong. And it's very human to try and seek connections out. And being able to connect through creativity is, it can be a very singular activity, or it can be a group activity. And especially when you, like the gallery, you share your work publicly and you see people engaging and looking and taking from your artwork what they need, and looking and hearing what they see in the artwork that you've produced, is really empowering, I think. Um, and seeing how it can resonate. So whether it's a small writing group, whether it's a painting group, whether it's mindful coloring, whether it's, you know, baking or cooking together, or it's stitching and knitting together, it's not just the activity, it's all the side products, the byproducts that come with that as well,
Yeah.
which I think are equally empowering in itself. So I think when you come from a group of people that have been given certain messages by society, be that because you're non-binary, your gender identity, it could be to do with your sexual orientation, we internalize all of that. And whether we know it or not, it affects us, because none of us can avoid the kind of socialization messages that are out there. We try to be a bit Teflon about it, but not, you know, especially when you're young, you do absorb all of that. So I
Mm.
think art helps you. I think Delphine said, you know, it helps you process some of that. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's really hard to say it with words. I think it's really painful to say it and articulate that experience in words. And so, you know, when Eleanor was talking about dealing with really hard subjects through soft, you know, products like, you know, thread and wool and, you know, those sorts of textiles, I think it's really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, there's different. I can see what you're saying about the different aspects of just processing those feelings, doing the engaging with the actual activity yourself, and then how the connections that come about from doing that, and then also then the audience, or the audience of the work, and how they then process that as well. I can imagine that there's a lot, particularly around how I when we come from minoritized groups, how we then identify with what we're seeing as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I have to just say, I loved what Delphine was saying, was that when she was spray painting, and she, you know, she does do small work, but she wanted to make really big work. And that joy of making and taking space and being allowed to take that space and actually saying, I want to take all of this space, I think is a really healthy thing to do as well.
Yeah, and also that links with what Eleanor was saying about, you know, women have been doing these kinds of works, particularly around textiles, for so long, you know, across cultures, and they're not necessarily recognized as artistic pieces, but of course they are. Thank you. We've had a question.
Can I just say a quick thing? Sorry.
Yeah, please.
My pronouns are they, them. So
I'm
just
sorry, I missed that
I'm not
one.
apologizing for that, but thank you for your comment about, you know, the art and the processes and things. You really got what I was meaning. Yeah. Anyway,
Brilliant, thank you. While you're off mute, actually, Delphine, we're just going to ask this question,
Okay.
which is in terms of having, you know, a so-called skill or a talent. Is it how important that is in? I'm just going to read it. Actually, is having a so-called skill or talent important in benefiting from the positives of creating your own work, or even in benefiting from creative or art therapy? Might the belief that one is not talented hold a person back from trying, do you think? Do you have anything you want to say to that?
If having so-called skill. Oh wow. Oh, definitely, because I never thought I had a skill. I mean, I just no. And that's certainly not something I'm doing with my clients. Our offer, it's there. If they want to use it, it's on offer. There's absolutely no pressure to use it, but it has been helpful in the past. It doesn't have to be like creative. What does it mean? Does it have to be painting, drawing? No, it can be like doing like box work. We have little boxes, and one could be your gender, your work, your this and that and the other, and then you just put little pieces of paper of what can I control, what I can't control. And so you could be creative in so many ways. It doesn't have to be a painting, it doesn't have to be these beautiful things you're doing, Eleanor. It doesn't have to be photography. It can be in the therapy room. There's so many things you can do in the first place. And I think it worked for me actually, in my own experience with my therapist at the time when I was training, is to bring something that was really pretty, thinking I'm being so arty and lovely. I mean, that's quite a few years ago, because it's evolved since. But that really switched something in here. It's like, I'm doing this because I want approval for someone. I want to be good at this. I'm not good at anything else. Am I creative? No, surely I'm not. You know what creative means to me. And then once I let go of that, then it was like an explosion of art and of creativity with my spray paints. It was just pure joy to do that, and it was, you know, releasing. But it doesn't mean that, you know, with people around us, with young people, for instance. And no, creativity is anything you want, as you said earlier. I think you said, you know, it can be the way you cook. I love cooking. You know, I feel I'm creative with cooking. I'm creative with you know, these are other things, and they're all valuable. All of them are super valuable.
Yeah, thank you. Eleanor, do you want to add to that? Thanks, Delphine.
I believe as marginalized people, we need to resist the idea of talent or being talented. For me, there is no such thing as talent. I wasn't born with the innate ability to crochet. I wasn't born like with a needle. Like, these are things that I learn. For me, the only things that exist are the audacity to do these things and show them, and the hard work of trying to refine a skill. Talent is often like, we say that like, oh, an artist is talented, but you know, you don't see the hard work that's gone on like for 40 years of them refining a skill. And if you make anything, that's good art, because who's to say what is good or not? So for example, Jeff Koons is like a renowned artist. He doesn't even do his own casting. He doesn't actually do it. He doesn't make that work. Like, Damien Hirst, he puts animals in like formaldehyde or whatever. Like, is that skillful? Like, I'm not to say like Marshall Duchamp. He put a toilet in an art gallery and people ate it up. It's the audacity. It's the audacity and the confidence. And you shouldn't have to wait to discover that you're talented at something. You should just do things. And if you enjoy them, then congratulations. That's your talent.
Yeah. And there's definitely something there around who decides which talent has value and who is making those decisions to that of what is talent or what isn't. And that's, like you said, is very important in terms of being from marginalized communities and not actually ever being recognized for what you're doing.
Honestly, the things that some people consider talented just come from money and privilege of being able to do them. So don't wait for someone to tell you they're talented. Like, just do the thing and share the thing, and resist the idea that you have to be innately good at it, because yeah, who decides what is good? Like, people with money.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Pamen, did you want to add anything quickly before we go on to the last
No,
bit?
I think Eleanor's really summed that up so well. I agree. You know, I believe in DIY art. If people think it's incredibly talented, fantastic. But I think if women waited and non-binary people hung around waiting for that kind of affirmation, we'd never create any art, because I think women have been so much on the outside, and only one or two women might be celebrated, and the same with non-binary people. So I think we just don't have time. Our well-being doesn't have time to wait for that rubber stamp of approval. We have to do what we have to do to survive and keep our well-being intact.
Yeah. Thank you. And yes, I do love that. Do the thing and share the thing. That's going to be, I'm going to take that away from this space. Okay, so we're going to wrap up a bit now. We've only got a few minutes left until 7 o'clock. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the three of you to say for sharing your insights. And I just wanted to give you, I'm going to ask you in a minute if there's any last kind of things that you want to kind of finish off with saying. But before we get to those final thoughts, Fred says, I agree with all the thoughts. Thanks for them. And who says, what is talent? Thank you. Thanks, Fred. And I just wanted to, we did have a thing where we sort of said that everyone who had submitted creative pieces, and thank you so much to everyone who did submit those pieces, we took everybody's names and we put them into a prize draw and randomly pulled out a winner, I guess. Well, it's not really a winner, but somebody from that prize draw to get a Cass Art voucher. And so the random draw was held just before we did this session tonight, and we actually have a winner. But that person is someone, it's the person who actually submitted the poem, actually. And we will be emailing you the uh, the the Cass Art voucher. We're going to email that to you. But I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who put in a piece. And we are going to keep that person anonymous just because that's how they've asked. But to also say thank you again to all of our panelists tonight, and to also say thank you to the audience for actually engaging and asking questions as well. And then I'd like to also very much do a round of applause. This is me doing a round of applause to all of the work that has gone in the background, because I don't have enough IT experience to be able to put this together. So thank you very much to the work that's been done happening in the background that we don't get to see. But thank you very much to those people, particularly Tom, who's been running the IT, and Mark as well. Thank you, Shraddha. I appreciate that as well. And I'm just going to quickly finish off with each of the panelists to say one last thing before we finish in 5 minutes. We've got 5 minutes to fill. So, Eleanor, do you want to go first and say last things?
Final thoughts are
Mm,
make things for the joy of making them, and
yeah.
don't worry if they're good or not, because you're never going to feel like you're good at something if you never practice it. My other thing really quickly is actually a plug. If you're in London from the 25th to the 3rd of April, please come down to the No Format Gallery in Deptford. There's going to be a exhibition called Hysterical, which is a women and non-binary exhibition. It's going to be absolutely fabulous. So please come down and see some cool art.
Thank you. Uh, Paminda, final thoughts?
Well, I don't know if I can give any profound final thoughts other than remember there's a playfulness to creating art. So it doesn't always have to end on an exhibition wall. It doesn't always have to win a prize. People often say when they're creating work, well, I can't, I'm not good enough, I'm not an artist. And we put lots of barriers in our way to say, this is why I can't do something. So, if you want to write, for example, but you've never written a short story, I'd really encourage people to journal. Just, 50 words, 100 words, maybe once a week, and then moving up to 2-3 times a week. If you want to take photographs, take your iPhone, take your Samsung, whatever you want, your mobile, and just go out and take pictures. And if you want to experiment with color and paint, just take a paintbrush. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Far from it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Delphine, final thoughts? Oh, Delphine, unmute.
So, Parminder, thank you for saying that, because my project at college was called Perfection. So it was about being perfect. And I had just done like a massive, very big in big letters, perfection, and I learned to play again, and actually picked up playing from my inner child, my younger child, and I picked that up and started to really enjoy and just play. I just play with my paints, and sometimes I've got really focused on the painting or what I want to do, a project. It just comes like from nowhere, and sometimes I just go think, I'm just going to go and spray paint and just play. And it's so important what you just said about just play. It doesn't have to be something you're going to exhibit as something you're going to be. I'm really proud. I mean, the exhibition for me, I'm really proud of. It's a massive step for me to be doing that. I feel really, really passionate about, because it's about politics and the Me Too movement and that sort of thing. But I do it for pleasure. It's just fun and play, and as adults, we need that. We need to just connect to that and play, and it's just so therapeutic, and that's what we need, whichever way we do it, whichever way we do it. I've just found my way, and I'm sure there'd be many others, like everyone else. People.
Thank you. Thank you so much again to the three of you for all of your insight and for taking part in this. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone else. And I think we're going to end there. So have a good rest of the evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.